Hi and welcome to RetroErec. Today we are going to talk about printer port sound devices. But before we begin, I will also place these other gadgets from Zelda Shop here on the table for you. This one is a MIDI to serial port device. It's very handy. Together with soft MPU, you can redirect the MIDI sound through your serial port and then to your MIDI synthesizer. You also have a similar device, but this one is for the gaming port / MIDI port on your sound card. It has an input and output MIDI connector. We also have this parallel port to DB9 for joystick. This is also quite handy. I'm not sure it's the best device or gadget out there to connect an Atari style joystick to a PC, but it works in some games. This, however, works on all games. It is very good. It connects to the DB15 joystick / MIDI port on most sound cards, and you get a DB9 connector for your Atari style joystick. It also has two potentiometers where you can adjust the X and Y axis. I've never actually had to do that. You could check out my video on this device, but it's a very good device. Also, we have a serial port to PS2 mouse, also quite handy if you don't have a serial mouse but you want to connect it to the serial port on your old retro computer. And lastly, of his gadgets, we have just this doubler, DB15 doubler to two DB15 ports, so that you can connect two joysticks, for instance. Okay, let's remove these extra gadgets. They are not part of this video primarily. Primarily, we are going to talk about these gadgets. These are all gadgets that I have made video about in the past, except for this one. I didn't have this one. This is a Tandy LPT, but we'll talk some more about that. So, what is the plan today? Well, my plan in this video is to just talk about these different gadgets. What is the different? Where can you use them? On which games? Do they have patches? Do you need drivers? Are they good? Do they produce the sound you want to hear? And so forth. And I will even, at the end of the video, I will give you a score on my take and what I believe how good it is. Okay, let's start with the first one I actually ever received from Zelda Shop. This is the OPL3 LPT. It has an OPL3 chip and it connects to the LPT port, the printer port. So the name is very self-explaining. He also have a OPL2 LPT. The difference is that it uses the OPL2 chip instead of the 3 chip. And the difference between the 2 and the 3 is basically stereo. So the OPL3 supports stereo sound. Not that many games out there supports stereo, but for most games it will work as an OPL2 chip. So that's very quick. OPL2 and OPL3 chip was also known as the AdLib chip. So this is basically an AdLib sound card that you connect to the print port. Then we have the CMSLPT. CMS is the Creative Music System, or as it also was called, the Game Blaster. So this was the same two sound chips that was used in the first Sound Blaster or Game Blaster card. It was actually called creative music system. Yeah, and it was also advertised as the Game Blaster. I've done a separate video on this, but I'll come back with some more information. And then we have the Tandy LPT. This is basically the same as the CMS or OPL3 LPT, but it uses the Tandy sound chip. So that was the same sound chip as you would have in those Tandy systems. We're also going to talk a bit more about the Covox 4. The Covox 4 is basically a digital to analog converter that consists of resistors. I made this, one of these myself back in the days. I remember I had my 386 and I had 2 printer ports, and I had 2 of these that I made myself and used that to play stereo sound from my 386 machine. And that was even before I had the money to buy myself a Sound Blaster card. So I remember this with great joy. Salmon Shop has made several versions of this, and this is the Covox 4. And it is basically just a lot better quality than the original DAC that you made yourself. So if you want the best available printer port DAC converter or Covox, this is the one you can use. Lastly, we have the S2P. It is basically in another league than the other adapters here. The other adapters are music sound chips that create old time or retro sounds or retro sound cards. But this is a brand new chip. It's basically a MIDI synthesizer on this printer port, and with this attached to your PC, you can produce MIDI sound, general MIDI to be exact. So let's talk some more about the OPL3 LPT. It's basically an AdLib card. It's made for the printer port. If I go to vogons.org and check compatibility on AdLib games, I get 1,753 games. So that is quite a lot. But it does not work on all those games. You need a driver to use this to redirect the sound to the printer port instead of the AdLib card you usually have on your Isobus. You need a driver. The driver is called AdLib, and there has one big drawback, and that the driver is a terminate and stay resident program, so you need a 386 or better. But with that driver, I don't think I've had any problems, but there are probably some games that won't work, but I can't remember one single game that didn't work on a 386 with the AdLib driver. But one of the things I really like about this OPL3 LPT is that you can patch games. And there's quite a big community out there. If you check out vogons.org, you will see that they have created patches for 70 plus games. You can even download a demo pack with demo versions of games pre-patched to test with your OPL3 LPT. So the community around this device here is quite good. It produces, of course, the correct sound. This is as true sound as you can get. It's a real OPL3. And there is no background noise, no nothing. So I'm really happy with the quality here. Next, the CMSLPT. As mentioned, Creative Music System. It's the SAA 1099 chip from Philips, and it creates the Game Blaster sound. check out my video on this one. This is a square wave sound. It has 12 channels, I think, 6 on each chip, so 12 channels together, and it produces a very distinct old type of gaming sound. According to Vogons.org, it has 100 games that uses this sound chip. But like the OPL3 LPT, to use it, you need a driver. The driver is called CMSLPT, and it also needs a 386 or better. That is a big drawback, but just like the OPL3, you can patch games. At the moment, there are about 30 patches out there. So that means that when the game is patched, you can run it on 8086 or 8286. You don't need a 386 or better anymore to use this. And then we have the TNDLPT. Sorry that I don't have the original type here. I reached out to Server Shop, but he was out. He didn't have any more at stock right now, so I'm just using this printout. Anyway, the TNDLPT, same as the previous gadgets. Printer port and sound chip, the same sound chip as the Tandy computer we're using. The chip is called the SN76489, and it's from Texas Instruments. According to Vogons.org, it has approximately 450 plus games that uses the Tandy sound chip. But also here you need a driver, and the driver needs a 386 or better. Sadly, there are no patches, at least I have not found any patches for the TNDLPT yet, so the only way you can use it in your games is to use the TNDLPT driver. It's hard to count number of games that uses this because there are so many names out there. But according to Vogons.org and my own calculations, I would say there is about 190 plus games out there that can use this one. You don't need a driver if the game has support DAC-LPT or Covox. You just connect it. You don't even need power, and your jack plug here, and your game will work. Also, there's a lot of demos using the Covox. But to get even more support for the Covox, there is our driver out there called the TEMU or TEMU or Tandy emulator that basically redirects sound meant for the Tandy sound chip, and you redirect that to your Covox. I've tried that and it actually works quite okay. You also have a driver called the Covoxer. It needs a 386 or better, and it will give you Covox support for games that did not have that. So the TMU and Covoxer will give you support for more games. And then we have the S2P. This is actually a gadget that I've been drawn quite fond of. It's a modern MIDI device. It uses the chip called SAM2695 and is made by Dream. Server Shop is using sound chips from Dream in several of his MIDI devices. What I really like about this is the sound quality. It has no background noise, no nothing. If you want just plain MIDI, general MIDI, this is really, really good. You need to install a driver called Soft MPU. The Soft MPU basically redirects MIDI to the printer port. It's actually also the same driver as we are using for this device, that instead of redirecting it to the printer port here, it redirects it to the serial port, and then you can connect your MIDI device here. So that's the same driver, soft MPU, and it works with a lot of games. Again, checking Vågons.org, support for general MIDI is 377 games, but there is nothing stopping you from using it with games that does not have a general MIDI option, but roll on GS or roll on SC88 or even MT32. So basically all games that has some sort of MIDI device, you can redirect the sound with the driver to the printer port. I actually prefer using this over the MIDI that is built into most Sound Blaster cards. So, just a quick round. Do they need anything special? Well, they all need USB power. And, well, not all. These one needs USB power, and this one, so the only one that don't need USB power is the Covoxer. Talking about USB power, I've said it before in my videos, you need a good quality USB charger to don't get any background noise. So if you have several chargers, even if they are brand names or good, supposed to be good quality, just test different USB chargers and see what gives you the best sound. So I have a few notes here. Stereo. Well, I mentioned this one is stereo if you have games that uses OPL3 LPT. Not many does. This is also stereo, as mentioned, 2 chips, 6 channels on each chip, and combines it to a stereo. The Tandy, I haven't tested it, but I'm pretty sure the Tandy is not stereo. The Covox 4, well, of course, this one is not stereo, but as mentioned, you can connect 2 of these if you have 2 printer ports, and you can combine that and you will get stereo. And of course, the S2P is stereo. Let's talk trackers or music players. Can I use any of these on trackers? Well, there is one very good tracker out there called the Moodmaster, and he also has a Moodmaster XT, which only uses 8086 or better. I've tried that and it's very good. There is another tracker out there called SB-VGM. So basically it's a VGM player, just like Moodmaster is. And all these, well, almost all these devices have support for the Moodmaster XP and the SB-VGM. I haven't tried them all, but I've tried these 2, and it works very, very well on an 8086 machine with Moodmaster XT. So the S2P is a general MIDI device, so you can basically use any MIDI player you have, as long as you have used the soft MPU driver to redirect the sound. So I've tried this with a couple of MIDI players, and it works very, very well. I also have videos on that, so you could check that out. So are these devices any good, and will I recommend them? Well, if you want to have authentic sound, if you want to listen to a Adlib card or a creative music system or Tandy sound or the Covox, I would recommend all these devices. They give you the authentic experience. The only thing that is maybe not 100% authentic is that the lack of noise. All these devices here are much better than the original devices. So, well, at least if you have a good quality charger or 5-volt input for these devices, you will have very, very good sound quality. So if you want to test out that game that you played when you were a kid on the Tandy, and you just want to listen to that sound, well, get the TNDLPT. And if you want the if you want to listen to the Game Blaster, how did that sound before we had the ad-lib, before we had OPL2 chips on Creative Sound Blasters? Well, buy this one. It only costs a few euros, and you can check it out yourself. You can test that. And I had to say, that was great fun for me. It was great fun for me playing with this, listening to the sound, because it has a very distinct sound, and it was great fun for me to connect this, listen to the mods I listened to when I was a kid. I really enjoyed that. And of course, this one, if you have this 386 portable computer with no sound card built in, even I have 486 computers all with no Sound Blaster built in. This is just great, because you just install the driver and you're good to go, and the games just work. So I'm very happy with this and recommending these devices. This one is the best devices if you just want to play old games with ad-lib support, and as mentioned, it has over 1,700 games, so it's a great place to start if your computer doesn't have an ISO card, or even if it has an ISO slot. You can still use this, because the support for that driver on a 386 or better is quite good. And even if it's not a 386, you have the patches, it's still a very good sound card. And it has less background noise than any sound card from that area has. So it's a very good sound card. So I would actually, if we should score this, I would actually say that the OPL3 LPT, I'm using the score 1 to 6, like a dice. So score 1 being the lowest. So I would say that this is a sure 6er. The same with the OPL2 LPT from Zelda Shop, but you don't need both. The OPL3 is just a stereo version of the OPL2. I would say that it's a good 6er, great support, high quality sound. Then you have the CMSLPT. It gives you the authentic sound, has a great quality, low background noise, but it has support for very few games. Well, that's not this device's fault, but it has support for very few games. And the driver needs a 386 or better. And most games are not made for 386 machines, they are made for slow machines. So then you would, to really use it, you would probably want to have patched games, and there are only about 30 games available for this with a patch. But of course it works very good with the Mod Master. So I would only give it a score 2 on my dice, basically because the support for CMS games are low. Yeah, also, if they have support for CMS, they almost also have support for OPL3. So if you have a game with support for the CMS, it probably also has support for OPL2 or 3. Well, not 3, but at least 2. So we have the Tandy here. What's my score on that? Well, I will give it a slightly larger score. I will give it 3. It has support for a few more games than the CMS. But many games have only support for Tandy or PC speaker. So if you have a really old game with no support for Covox or ad-lib or Sound Blaster, not even Creative Music System, they can still have support for the Tandy. So that's why I'm giving it a score of 3. Then we have a Covox. Well, I'm giving that a score of 4. One of the reasons is that I really enjoyed it so much. It has support for a lot of games and demos, and of course the Mod Master, so you can play your favorite mods from back in the days. One of the reasons I'm also giving this a score of 4 is that the quality of this one, especially the Covox 4, is very, very good. So if you want a Disney Soundcards or a Covox 4 or DAC LPT in your collection, this is the one to go for, because Serge has spent a lot of time perfecting this to have as low noise as possible. And then the S2P, the general MIDI device on the printer port, I would give that a score of a 6. I think it has great sound, very low noise, a great compatibility, not even with the general MIDI, but basically all MIDI devices does it support. You can even use SoftMPU to set it in MP32 mode. That will work on some games, but not all the games. Still, this is a very, very good chip. Okay, that was a lot of talk. I hope you learned something from this video, and I hope it wasn't too boring. I tried to concentrate all the things I wanted to tell you about these sound cards. I hope you learned something from this video, and if you liked it, well, press like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on more videos like this. Thank you for watching.